should have some water too. Oh, this is hot.
It's hot in here.
Ugh.
I know I haven't talked to anybody this morning really, so I'm like, froggy.
Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti.
Ah.
Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la.
Uh,
How now, brown cow?
the rain in Spain
Plain. I don't remember the rest.
stays mainly in the plain.
How much wood could woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood?
Oh,
Yeah.
Ah.
we made up nasty things to that one.
Oh, okay.
Won't go there.
Okay. So we'll just start. Okay.
Jory's like, oh.
We're just
Just
gonna
laughing.
We're just going to start. I'm just going to start. All right. Welcome back to the second in a series of 4 episodes discussing what I call the 4 A's. So it's authenticity, authority, autonomy, and agency, personal agency. And today it's going to be all about authority. So if you're ready, let's get into it. So when you hear the word authority, what comes to mind? It is definitely one of those words that can land heavy at first,
Yeah.
like an authority figure or someone that's speaking or acting from a place of authority, and we feel that we kind of have to obey them. For many people, it's external. So you have parental figures, bosses, experts, even those accumulated shoulds, quote, shoulds that we've absorbed since childhood. And while all of that may be true, I thought it would be good to explore authority from a different viewpoint. So, what if authority isn't about control at all? What if it's about listening? So, it may sound kind of weird, but stay with me. I mean, obviously, there are 2 different contextual meanings, but if we look at authority as a specific, energetic, decision-making intelligence that when, trusted, it keeps us aligned with our soul's path and protects us from living out everyone else's conditioning. So that's what's called inner authority, and we all have it. We just may not recognize it. So that's what I want to chat about today, and what it means to know your authority, and what it looks like when you finally start to trust it, and if in fact you to choose to trust it. But first, I actually want to take a step back and look at the idea of authority externally and see what you guys think about the topic of authority. So, when you were growing up, what did you think about the word authority? What did it say to you?
Yeah, immediately in my body, I'm like, "Ooh, authority," right? Someone who's above you or knows more than you or
Mm,
is in charge and gets to dictate and say what occurs. So very controlling, very controlling. I feel this rigidity in my body,
mhm.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. For me, so my dad was military. So
Oh.
yeah. So, so authority never felt safe. It had this connotation of control. It was associated with uniforms, power, like someone having power over me. It was very associated with fear. So it was something that I avoided. I found myself avoiding anybody who had the persona, even teachers who exercised dominion over um,
Mhm.
other people's right. Brene Brown calls it cognitive sovereignty. So, anyways, yeah, just anyone who feels like they need to take your brain out and replace it with theirs. That
Mhm.
is how I associated authority as a kid.
Um, well, no, I was just thinking that, well, my dad was in the military. He was a Marine,
Mm,
but didn't live that life. He actually was the reserves, so didn't have to deal with all of that 24/7. Although 2 of my brothers became Marines, and I wouldn't want. I've been at Camp Lejeune, and I've seen the attitude towards each other. And it's just like, okay,
Mm.
that's a lot. You didn't have to do that. At one point, my brother was just made someone get out and do push-ups. I'm like, but why? And
Mhm.
he felt because he could. So he had that authority,
Mhm.
was that authority figure as well, which did not sit right with me, but it was years ago and I've gotten
Mhm.
over it. Have you ever had to choose between, what you now know as external authority, your father, these other people, this control, and what felt true for you?
Mhm. For sure.
Yeah.
As I got older and understood, like I truly understood, like that kind of authority was
Mhm.
not, there were more definitions and that one was not healthy. I did come to understand, like there does sometimes need to be a space where someone has authority. Like there are times when someone needs to be able to, I think of a, um, like someone who has the right to marry other people, right? They they have this authority that's given to them through the
Mhm.
internet or or the or
Yes.
some entity that says you have the authority to do this, or anything like that. I'm thinking about people who have the authority to make decisions. If we're all making decisions that need to be
Mhm.
made, it could be just complete chaos. So I did want to say that, the definition evolved and there is that piece. But as far as your question, like, was there a time when I asked the question one more time?
Did you ever have to choose between what you now know is external authority of other people outside of yourself, and what felt true, what you knew was true for you, and you had to decide to say, I know this is what I want to do or what I believe, but I have to do what I'm told because it's an authority figure, um, but I don't agree with it, or I know what's true for me, but I can't. Did you ever have
Hmm.
to have those situations where it's like, okay, I'll do this because of that?
Yeah. I mean, you guys both know this, but um, most notably in a recent job that I had that I no longer have, where
Yeah.
the employer demanded strict control
Mhm.
and scripting and compliance. Uh, and and dare I say he was a doctor as well. So that doesn't mean that all doctors are like that, but they're like, just
Mhm.
to give some context for why it was like this. Um, and when I noticed that I started to lose cognitive sovereignty and felt pressured to self-betray, I asserted my autonomy uh, to start creating that, cognitive sovereignty. And I was let go. So
Right.
that was definitely a time when I had to, and that was most recent, just a time when I had to choose my mental health and my what was really best for me over um, a commitment that I had made to another person, but one of those,
Mhm.
like, I didn't know what I was signing up for. So,
Mhm.
Yeah, I've definitely been in that position. And I kind of wanted to go back for just a second when you were talking about
Mhm.
there's Dory saying that there are times and places to have that authority. And to me, which just blew up in my mind was I have an issue with authority and with the control factor and that kind of piece.
Mhm.
And how I see authority is I would love to see that swapped out for leadership. Leadership
hmm
and permission versus authority, because I think just in the way we've defined it collectively, the minute someone says authority, there's all of a sudden this permission to go outside the box almost like, oh, okay, I have this authority. And I think integrity is important to people who have authority. And that's why I think leadership feels really aligned for me, because a leader doesn't control, a leader leads. That's different.
Mhm.
Right. And this authority for me is just it's coming up for me actually right now again. Where I'm really noticing where this is what feels good for me. This is my cognitive autonomy. This is the truth for me. And all these constructs around me are saying, You can't do that. It's not okay
Mm,
for you. You don't have the permission, you don't have the authority, you don't have the expertise. And some of this may be my own thinking, but I'm
mm.
really noticing that really, really strongly. And there's this sort of kind of struggle for power and control. And it feels gross. Actually, I feel pretty grossed out by it. And I'm really starting to feel like, oh, this is the time really more to settle into what is that inner authority.
Yeah, I don't, authority, like I said, it kind of lands heavy and you may get this negative feeling or connotation to it, but it's not all bad. I mean, we need authority. We need authority figures. You know, we have to, yes, keep some kind of control, but mostly structure
Yeah, think about
for,
the DMV, right?
Oh,
well, well,
Well, I'm
yes,
thinking about like you want to like people. I don't know. Maybe that's a charged
yes
topic,
and
or
no for that.
but I'm just thinking about someone who, you know, they put a 15-year-old out on the road. They got to take a
Mm,
test. Someone has to determine whether or not that person can
yes,
drive, right?
yes.
So that's where I'm talking about.
Okay, I thought you meant like the actually going into a
Oh,
DMV because
no.
that's, ooh, child. That's a
I
yes or
just
no.
their role.
Yeah, but that's true. Like
Yeah.
someone has to be the experts, and we have a lot of experts. We have a lot of wannabe experts masquerading as, you know, the experts, and people who don't know who they are, what they want, have any direction. They're seeking, they're searching for that authority, for those experts to kind of help them along the way, and sometimes tell them what to do because they don't trust themselves.
Mm.
So actually, since I said that, were you guys ever taught to trust your own authority when you're making decisions, like to say, okay, this is what I want to do. This is what I feel is correct for me. Or were you kind of conditioned to always look outside yourself? That father knows best, that mother knows best, or that someone else knows better than you, especially as a child.
Yeah. Are you talking like what stage of life?
Any life, even now. Because I know like there are some adults that feel like they can't trust their decisions and they have to look to other people to tell them what to do.
Mhm. So, for me, it was like clear into my 20s where I
Mhm.
was um strongly discouraged from thinking for myself, like strongly to a like it was abusive.
Mm,
And it wasn't until I hit my 20s and I had friends who started to like, you know, how you get to know each other and people talk and your friends have a way of reflecting things back to you and they really started to encourage me um to start living authentically. And when you live, at least for me, living authentically really takes some critical thinking, you know, because this world has been reflected. I remember the world was reflected to me as someone else wanted me to see it. And in order to break out of that and in order to be in this authentic place, I had to really push back against
mm,
those ideals. And not only that, it wasn't just the ideals, it was what it was doing to my nervous system. So I
mm,
had to, you know, so it was really important for me in that, at that time in my life to have people who could hold space for those conversations so that my nervous system would be calmed down enough to actually look at this. And at the time, I had no idea that was going on. I had no idea how important it was to have those conversations with people who were encouraging them and holding space for them. But now that I understand the nervous system and I understand the brain better, I'm like, holy cow, you know, it was a beautiful gift I was given to have a group of friends like that.
I can remember mine. I don't know the age or anything like that, but I remember the moment when I consciously made a decision on my own. And that was, I'll just say it. So it's a little silly, but to me, it still means so much. So, when you're a kid or even an adult, but someone else is paying for your food, you're out to eat, or you're at home, and you don't want you're full. You don't want to eat the rest of your food. And I may have said this before, but I remember at one point I was out at a restaurant and I was full, and I thought, I don't want to eat the rest of this. And usually someone be in my ear or at the table and saying, okay, you have to eat that, or that feeling of some other authority is saying, you have to eat all this food because I paid for it. So my thought was immediately, wait, I paid for this. I don't have to eat all of it. I don't have to force this food because I'm making a decision because this is what I wanted to do. And so I was just like, look at me. I've decided. I guess it's my own, authority and autonomy too. I'm like, I'm doing this. I'm not eating my food. You take it away. Thank you. So, do you guys have something that you consciously made a decision to say, this is what I want? It doesn't matter about anybody else? And Danny, I haven't forgot about you. You haven't said anything
No,
very
there's
much.
there's so much, so much. I'm having so many thoughts and
Okay. I'll come back to you. We'll come back. Dora, you're about to say something.
No, I was just taking a deep breath. I'm interested in what Danny has to say
I
too.
know, me too.
Yeah, I
Let's
mean,
hear it.
thinking about this, I'm coming back to like, I don't know, a very young age. And my mother was very much like, do you, girl? Right. And
Mm.
that always felt good. I remember how that felt for me. And then it didn't apply basically anywhere else. It didn't apply throughout my other family. And I had another parental figure who was very abusive around like just crushing it out of me. Like if there was anything
Mhm.
autonomous, there was anything different, I very much had to comply. And I remember very much thinking, okay, this is what I have to do to keep myself safe. And this is what I have to do to belong. And so there's this, I think I created this facade of like, okay, I'm belonging, I'm doing all the right things. And then there was this piece of me just on fire. Like, this is what's really burning inside. And so I would find other outlets and I would have a lot of alone time because I felt like the only place I could express that was when I was alone or with select individuals. And
Mm.
um, my sister, it's so funny, even to this day, she calls me oppositionally defiant. I'm like, girlfriend, that is just my own self speaking, and maybe you don't like that. And I'm
Right.
just like, whoa. And I very much have this push and pull around it. And it's only been probably in the last 10 years that I've really started to step out into like, wow, this is me. I don't need to have this. Um, I don't need permission to feel
Mhm.
this or express it, I think is what is most important in that.
Mhm.
I can feel it, but there's the expression of it. And what I've noticed is that when I do step into that inner authority and I honor it, it's very powerful. It
Mhm.
almost gives permission. It ignites other people's authority, inner authority.
Yeah.
And I've really tried to follow that thread as much as I can.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
want to just kind of add to that because I can so relate to your story very, very much. And I, same thing. Like I definitely, and in fact, people who know me are often surprised when they hear this part of my life where I was too, it wasn't safe to be me. And but just that same, like, I know inside, it's almost like creating this shell around yourself that looks like what everyone else wants to see, and on the inside, you're just running free, and that, and I think that is a type of survival mechanism, right? Where I still have to be connected to me, even though I'm the only one that knows that I'm here. But there does come a point where, for me, I had to, um, I realized that there is a skill in learning how to break out of that shell. And it was, for me, it came at the urging of people who were reflecting back to me, like, your actions are not matching your words. Um, and also trusting that inner authority.
Mhm.
So,
So, oppositionally defiant.
That's me.
Yeah, that stood out to me because it's like someone's calling you defiant because you're not following the rules. You're not doing what other people, have decided is the correct way or is the correct thing or, to way that to speak or to act or anything like that. But it's like you said, you're just being you, but they're seeing it through this, I don't know, window. Whatever kind of window they're seeing it through, um, and it's just interesting how it's kind of thrown back to you to say, no, you're different than everyone else. You're not falling in line.
Well, and not even different, but labeled.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Like there's some kind of mental illness or some kind of something wrong. I'm just like, whoa. That blows my mind a little bit. And
Mhm.
I just, yeah, that one sets me back. I'm like,
I
wow.
isn't that interesting? Like, have you ever been in a space with a bunch of people? This has happened to me several times, where I've been in a space with a bunch of people, and there's a lot of a talk about how specifically children, teenagers, who are like they're so unruly, or boy, they just don't have any respect for, dot dot dot. And I'm like, I just see someone who's like beaten to their own drum. I'm good with it. You know?
Yeah.
I always love that. I'm like, when it's interesting, I've noticed this in like social circles or groups
Hmm.
where, everybody's kind of minding their P's and Q's, if you will. And then there's like the one colorful person or
Yeah.
who's outspoken or whatever. And I'm just like, yes. Like I really appreciate the
Yeah.
difference. I really appreciate that person who can stand up and say, this is who I am. And I notice a lot of uncomfortability in the room when that happens because it's like the odd duck kind of thing. And I
Mhm.
gravitate toward those people. I just find it fascinating and just it feels like home almost to have
Mm.
someone that at ease with who they are in the world.
Yeah. So it's interesting that, all the stuff that we're talking about now. And I want to say that I wanted to bring up this conversation um, because there are so many people that have learned to distrust that inner voice, their way of being, um, that voice that has us saying, whether it's an irritation or disgust or anything like that, they say like, "Oh my God, I knew it. I knew it. I knew it. I should have done that," or "I knew I was right." They second guess what they feel. They defer to logic. They wait for permission. We did talk about permission, um, and I don't think it's a stretch really to say that we live in this kind of masked world that's full of self doubt, all of the quote shoulds, and we're following or relying on these external assumptions and opinions. And my biggest thing is social trends that really tell us what to think, when to feel, and how to act.
And
Right?
I want to say it's like for me, at least when I get that messaging, when I hear it, it comes from a space of in order to survive, right? Which is that's totally a place of scarcity.
Mhm.
I know, and this is, of course, coming from intention and oh my gosh, I'm gonna sneeze. I'm sorry.
Bless you.
Um, oh my God.
Chew.
Oh, that was obnoxious. Anyways, just as you were saying that, like you've got to be like this, and it kind of comes. Sorry, I don't mean to go on and on. I just um there is the illusion that if you do this, if you live like this, if you go for these goals that may not even align with you, that's where you're going to find your true happiness. Um, but really, there is this underlying, like, if you don't, uh, you may not survive, you may not live kind of a thing. So there's like this scarcity, there's this force, there's this subtle control at the base of all of it. And anyways, I just find it interesting that we think that that's freedom. We think that that's our personal authority, when it's really, you gotta, where am I picking this idea up from? It's not from me, it's out here, and that
Mhm,
it takes some serious discernment to figure
mhm,
out what's mine and what's not.
Yeah, and I think if people don't have a, excuse me, not necessarily a practice, but I'm going to say practice of that internal reflection, then you're getting your reflection from the outside, which is often distorted. And
Mhm.
then, internalize, and then you're acting on that. And no wonder we're just feeling so out of sync so many times.
Yeah,
I see this so clearly, and this is a big issue for people. So- and you're not alone, right? I think it's not
right.
something that it just exists within a few individuals. I think it's really widespread.
Yeah. And, I believe that it's really blinding us to our own inner authority and our ability to really capitalize on our own trusted physical and energetic intelligence. We're copying all of these things and we're performing. So, it's like we're being taught to seek out that authority rather than, be our own authority.
Mm.
Because again, that someone else knows best, or we have to put this mask on to be what other people want for that safety and security, to be in this group or this community, because we
Mhm.
think we need to belong to that, or we want to belong to this group, and because it's trendy or because they're popular, whether you go back to high school or university or working, your 9 to 5 or anything like that, you're always trying to fit in. And sometimes it takes a really long time to find your tribe. But
Mhm.
in the meantime, you're learning. I mean, all of this is really about um, learning how to trust your own your own identity, your own authority, all of that.
Yeah,
Um,
I
yeah.
want to be careful and just say like I kind of jumped on what you were saying, like, oh my gosh, yes, and blah 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 blah, and kind of attacked it. But for me, it was more like I want to make sure that my intention is not to bash anyone. I just find it interesting that we think that that's freedom. We think that that's um our personal authority when it's really, you gotta, where am I picking this idea up from? It's not from me, it's out here, and that
Mhm.
it takes like that's never my intention. I just recognize in myself, I can think of times when I feel this pressure, this external pressure to conform so that I will be accepted. And
Mhm.
then there are times, and so I find that it's really important that if I want to live authentically, if I want to, like I need to do the personal work, but it's also just as important to surround myself with people who can hold that space for themselves, right? Like they can hold their own space. They don't need to pressure other people to
Mhm.
yield to their desires so that they will feel more at ease in a space. Like they can hold their own,
Mhm.
regardless of who's in the space. So I think it's important, and it kind of goes back to that energetic intelligence. It's a frequency thing, you know. So
Yeah.
I love that you bring that up, and I have the utmost respect for not bashing on people.
mhm,
And part of my design and my inner authority is to express my individual
mhm,
self. Sometimes you have to call that up a little bit. Sometimes you have to point out that the emperor is
mhm.
freaking naked, right? And it might make people uncomfortable. And for me, that's okay,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
That can be done in a way that is respectful, and yet it's revealing and calling forward.
Yeah. So I'd like to kind of soften into this whole idea, right? Of what it actually means to hold your own authority, not as this badge or a label, but as knowing that this as a knowing, conscious part of who you are. What does it sound like? How do you feel it in your body? And Danny, you mentioned that you're expressive, so you know what that feels like. But I guess my question that I'm throwing out there is, knowing that, does it really change the way you move throughout your day, every day?
For me, it can in certain instances. I mean, the truth is I'm very conditioned, right? And it takes time
Mhm.
for those things to unravel a little bit. I definitely feel it. I sense it. It's almost like this burning,
Mhm.
this expansion, and it rises. And I have to like sometimes consciously like, oh, this is not the place. This is not the time. But I've started to, instead of just completely shoving it down and locking it out, dismissing it. I have to internally acknowledge that and say, okay, yes, this is real. This is
Mhm.
yours. This is how you feel. And is it, will it be, will it contribute if you were to express it right now? And if so, is there a kind way to do that? Because
Yeah.
sometimes it just like it literally is like a shot and it's like blah, and I'm like, great. Kind of can't take
Hmm.
that one back. So learning to kind of finesse the expression a little bit so that it
Hmm.
is true for me and it doesn't land so harshly outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to just throw something out there. Have you ever noticed how, and I think Danny, you will definitely, actually both of you, you're both pretty aware of your bodies, but how you notice how your body knows before your brain, you know, before your brain really decides on something. It's like that subtle pull of when something doesn't yet make sense. You feel that stomach clenching, if you want to say yes, or something's whispering or even screaming no, you know. And my thought is, when you notice that, my question, or just what I want to put out there is, what if that was actually your authority? If you don't actually know it, your body is speaking to you, and it's not through this loud voice of certainty, but it's more like this quiet hum of you being in alignment. And I know that it's very easy to miss because your authority doesn't compete with anything. It just kind of waits and sees if, you're going to listen. So was there ever a time when, uh, I guess following up on that, you knew something before you could even explain it, or you couldn't explain it, but you just knew it?
I tend to detect change before it, and I'm talking like on a massive scale. I tend to
Mm, mm,
detect
oh,
it before. And so being someone who's studied the cycles of transformation and tried to understand and anticipate what that feels like in my own body, I can recognize when there's a sense for it when I'm seeing it outside of myself. And sometimes it can be years before, surprisingly. I'm like, oh, I knew about that like 10 years ago, and it always surprises me. And sometimes it's, as little as, a couple of weeks, couple of hours where I'm like, oh, I felt that shift coming.
mhm,
So,
I think there's a For me, at least, yeah, I'm very sensitive too. It's like I'm a deer and the earthquake is coming and no one else is reacting. And I'm like, it's coming.
hmm
Like, even with this, like, it's not winter, but I'm like, winter's coming. Like, I'm feeling it. I'm sensing it. My body's like, prepare in this way, do these kinds of things. And people are like, it's this many weeks till winter. And I'm like, yeah, but like, I really am feeling that and really am sensing
hmm
that. And I think there's an element of courage
mm
to really say, this is what I need to do. This is what I'm being like my body's asking me to do. This is what the environment is asking me to do. It's a true response for me, regardless of because if I looked around and I saw what everyone else was doing, I wouldn't listen to that. But it's taken me some time as well because there's this weird brain thing happening around, well, who do you think you are that you know stuff before other people? Does that make you more important? Like it's a weird like back and forth in my mind sometimes. And it's been proven time and time and time again. I need to listen to that. Some of us just that's just part of who we are. And
yeah.
that guilt, right? There's peace there that's like, well, I saw that coming. And as long as I say something, I can feel okay with it. But if I keep it to myself and then something happens where I feel like I could have been of service, like I just have to honor it, regardless if someone else or the situation takes that in.
hmm
yeah.
Yeah, I think the way I get around that, um, is like, I can so relate to what you're saying, and the way I get around my own sabotaging of that is, there is this, like, and I don't mean this like anyone could do it. But I just mean, like, we all have bodies. Our bodies all give us feedback. And I just happen to be more in tune with what my body is saying in this type of messaging than I am, other things. And I also know I've put a shit ton of work in this. So I I I know, like, I did the work, right? And so there's that whole concept of the law of the harvest, right? And just I put in the work, and now I am getting out of it what I put into it. So that just makes sense to
Mhm.
me. That's a logical thing. Um, and there's other things and when I say the work into it, meaning really learning to trust myself and really learning, like, what it is I'm trusting. And I also know, like, if I were to learn to trust other things, I could be skilled in that. Skilled, uh, what's the word I'm looking for here? Aware. I could be aware of things that I currently am not. So for me, change is, um, in all honesty, a lot of my unsafe experiences as a child helped me to be hyper aware of when change was coming. But now that's a gift, right? But I could do that with other things. So, and I recognize that there's other people that have that ability with and I mean, there's so many other things, which is why I think it's important to be open to what people have to say, and recognizing when someone else is following their own authority versus trying to pressure you to yield to control.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think it takes experience to sort of identify those patterns for
Hmm.
yourself and others.
Oh
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. It takes time. Yeah. So I actually want to talk about inner authority and human design right now, just for a little bit, because everyone has it, this built-in unique decision-making authority, the system, and all of us have it. The three of us have different ones. So Dora, yours is sacral in traditional human design, and or evolutionary and quantum human design. Danny, yours is emotional, which I think we touched on, or creative in quantum human design, and mine is splenic, which is actualizing in quantum human design. Um, and inner authority is really how our body speaks to us, and it gives us, our truth, our wisdom. Different ways, though. Um, it may speak to us in a way that really lights us up. It takes us on an emotional wave. It may whisper some things. It may, you know, sometimes send tingles up and down your spine. Um, that's kind of shocking. But it's also something that, we get from soundboarding with other people, or giving us time, like a lunar cycle, 28 days, wait a month, but for the big things, and sometimes we need that. People need that for clarity, for the big things in life. It's not for every day. That would be impossible. Um, and so given this little bit of insight into ourselves, I'm curious if there was ever a time, when your inner authority spoke. So maybe you listened to it, or maybe you didn't. And what was the result of that, or the long-term outcome from that choice? And I should say, well, you can do this afterwards, but like what might have unfolded if you had chosen differently?
Mm. I remember very clearly and in retrospect, uh, my first marriage, my authority told me, uh-uh, and it kept telling me.
Mm.
And I overrode it with my brain and my logic and my social conditioning. And I'm like, but this is the right thing to do. This is how it's done. And I remember feeling inside kind of held hostage a little bit. Like there was this conflict of I'm feeling I'm feeling all of this, like this is a no, this is a no. And I kept trying to kind of make myself feel differently. And I never did. I never did. And it was this constant abdication of my inner authority constantly. And I mean, I could go on and on for days of ways that that played out, but ultimately, in looking back, I'm like, that was a definite signal. That was my inner authority speaking, and I was not listening to it. And then in contrast, there's been instances where I have listened to it, but I've also taken my time with that emotional authority, that creative piece. It's kind of a, you kind of have to go through the lull of it, up to the high of it, and then back down into neutrality. So it's kind of like a full cycle, a full like emotional cycle to run the gambit and sort of try on different shoes really and
Mhm.
see which ones fit. And if there's a through line, it can be kind of complicated. But I know that when I take my mind out of it and I really just let my emotional body, if you will, lean into it and feel it and process it, when I come up for air, I'm very clear. I'm very clear.
Yeah. Um, and you don't have to answer this because it involves other people. But you were saying that your emotional authority was speaking to you about you shouldn't get married, you shouldn't do this. And for your reasons, you went ahead and did it. So what do you think might have changed, or how would your life look differently if you had honored your authority?
Hmm.
And let me preface this by saying, me saying this or throwing this out there does not mean that everyone should just say, like in that situation, nope, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to follow my authority and I'm not going to get married because it's everything in me is, telling me no. I'm not saying that everyone should absolutely do that because it involves other people and it's, can be a snowball effect. And then if you're looking back, years, it may be hard to say what might have been different, but
Well, I
I
can't say
guess.
I would abdicate for if you're in a situation like that. Digging details, there's only two people involved, really, right? Like if you
Mm,
go and you have a family and you get involved financially and all these things, now it's deep. Now
yeah.
everything's impacted, right? So I think in looking back, that's where I would say that's where things would be different. I
Mm,
would have had more practice in learning what my authority had to say and implementing them in real life matters
mhm.
versus trying to say, okay, this is what my authority says, and now I have to make all these other considerations.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I want to add that, like, sometimes people think, I think it would be like, it would make sense that if you chose into something that didn't end up working out for you, you could sit there and go, scratch your head and what was that all about? You know, that kind of a thing. But I just want to say, like, going back to that job that I just got let go from, I I knew that that was one of those moments where it was like this internal go for it. So I did. And it didn't end up working out. But what I gained from that experience was trusting myself that even when I feel like somebody is not going to agree with what I have to say, or they're not going to be happy with what I say, I can trust that I'm still going to lean into it. I'm still going to lean into the thing that I need to say, and I can trust myself in the way that I do it because that's really important to me. Like I don't want to barrel all over people. I want to be tactful. I want to be polite, and I want to be authentic. And all of that happened. So it was just um, I think learning to listen to your inner authority is like living in a laboratory, if you will. And your body is a compass, you know, it's a felt sense. It's not a mental calculation. I think you do need to weigh your options and you need to decide like, is this even a good idea, that kind of a thing. But
Mhm.
for me, it is really really listening to my body is about getting the timing right because it might be right, but it might not be right now, and so there's a timing element to this as well. So,
Definitely. Yeah. And I was saying that, oh, you're following your authority or you get that sense and that knowing, you know, you do have to think it through. You have to
Mhm.
figure out, you have to weigh the pros and cons and, all of that stuff. Maybe if it impacts someone else. But yeah, you can do that with your head, you do that with your mind, but it's your inner authority is what makes the decision, not mental. Your brain is this tiny dictator that's saying, I know what's best. Like, Dory, your brain could have been like, yes, this is good. But don't say anything. Don't say anything because, you know, we don't know what's going to happen. It's that uncertainty.
Oh, if I could tell you how, if I had listened to my mind, I would still be there. I would not have said anything, just like you said. But even though I did listen to myself and I did lean into it, all the mental gymnastics that have gone on behind the scenes since being let go. Like, well, if I had
Hmm.
only done this, or if I'd only, no, 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 no. And it wasn't until I finally was like, Dory, let that go. Like, let that shit go. That is not helpful. And really learn from this experience. I really started to gain, I have gained some deep understanding about myself. And it wasn't even about, like, I was grateful for the teaching moment. A lot of things that I learned
Hmm.
in a really short amount of time that I don't know as if I could have learned otherwise. So,
Yeah. And that's like, I don't ever want to say like, just don't listen to your mind. It's a recipe, right? There's these
yeah.
components, they all filter in and weigh in on the situation. And like in my experience, I feel like I could have looked back and said, oh, this is terrible, or whatever. And that was a rich learning environment.
Hmm.
Really, really was. And so, I mean, I'm kind of a person who likes to take away, like, what is the takeaway from that? Because the rest isn't really
Yeah.
helpful.
My point in that is like even after the fact, your brain is going to mess with you. That's
Yes.
really the point that I'm trying to make.
Hmm.
So, even though like your body is like, I'm safe, I'm okay, we're good, this was awesome, we're on top of the mountain, you're sitting there going, but am I? Am I really? You know?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. Yeah. That touches on so many things, like you said, just right timing and listening to your authority, even when it doesn't make sense, because your body knows. Your brain tries to override it, but that's why it's important to listen to our body, our that felt sense. And all of that is really important, even especially if it doesn't make sense. But that's part of, the trusting. So I think that's the probably the hardest part of um, just becoming acquainted with your inner authority. How do you think, or no, I should say, what do you think is the hardest part of trusting your authority over expectations? What's the hardest part of trusting your authority over expectations?
I would say it differs in if in a situation where I might have experience versus a new situation where I don't have anything to go from, if that
Mm,
makes any sense. Because if I can tap in and say, okay, I this is my inner authority and I'm going to trust this, I think if I have the experience of it working out, if you will, then my brain is more compliant.
mm,
And people around the outsides, it's more compliant because you can say, "Oh, this has worked out before," and for whatever reason, that's a gauge. I don't know why we're doing that, but because it feels good. And then in a situation that's new, it's like, okay, here's the authority, here's the felt sense, here are these components, and that's when my brain starts to kind of go crazy a little bit. That's when it's like, are you sure? Are you sure? I just have to really deepen into the felt sense of it more because I don't have that background and the safety features are starting to kick in, right?
mhm.
Like, don't go over there. That looks like a cliff when really it's just like a 3-foot drop.
mm, right.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
go
you have
ahead.
to be really careful with that self-deception. That it's so important to be honest with yourself. That's like a whole nother topic. But yeah, I would say for me, kind of along the same lines, but there is this like the biggest challenge is letting go of control and the fear of rejection. It doesn't feel good physically. It doesn't feel good to feel rejection. Like I feel it in my shoulders, I feel it in my chest. Um, and I don't know, there's like um And the control piece comes from having expectations of how something's going to go. And so, like you've been talking about, we've been alluding to trust, really learning to let go and just trust, ride the wave, ride the current, stop trying to fight it and just allow it to carry you. But boy, that takes some serious, like, I think there's a difference between discipline to relax, like disciplining yourself into relaxing versus controlling yourself into relaxing. Like, and
Oh,
because that's like rigid, right?
yeah, it's forced. Like I'm going to make myself relaxed and,
Hmm.
I'm going to make myself, I know about that. That doesn't work. That does not work.
Yeah.
No, 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 it doesn't
Yeah.
work. Um,
So, yeah, I just was, so there's times where I am being, there's some self-deception there where I have to just kind of go, okay, why am I holding on tight? What am I
mhm,
holding on tight to? Can I let it go? You know, and um and there it is.
mhm, yeah. Do you know, or can you tell when you're acting from alignment as opposed to operating from conditioning? Can you tell that?
I think for me, this is an interesting question because when I really reflect on it, what I discover is I there's been so much like needing to this need to conform in order to survive. It's more familiar sometimes, depending on like where my nervous system is. It's more familiar to be in this misaligned space that I have to really
Mm,
like
s-
train myself to be in that unfamiliar space of alignment. And um I don't know, I remember like times when I was with someone who knew what alignment felt like and looked like, and they recognized it in me. And then the encouragement came, keep hold the line, Dory, keep going,
mm,
and where she could see where I was trying to like, but no, this is uncomfortable. And she's like, keep going. You can do this. You've got this, and that was so uncomfortable. But I realized in that moment, like this is something that I have to really hold space for because it doesn't feel familiar. It's so easy to shift into the misalignment. So that's been an interesting blind spot to find in myself.
mhm.
Yeah,
Oh
I
my
have
gosh.
on that.
Yeah.
Like, oh, if it feels alive in me, I feel like aliveness feels that's the alignment for me. That kind of like curiosity that
Yeah.
moves me a little bit forward. And I know that the unfamiliar piece because like I'll bump up and I'm like, then all of a sudden I get resistant. I'm like,
Yeah.
but then I'm ha, ha, right? And so that's kind of there was a motto for me for a hot minute was like, okay, if I feel resistant to it, that's exactly where I need to go
Yep.
and push past that unfamiliar piece of things into the other side. And then it's like a breath of fresh air, mostly.
Yeah, because you can realize like, oh, it wasn't so bad. Your mind is telling you don't do that, or that's I don't know what's going to happen, and so you do need to lean into that discomfort because what happens is the reason why some people they don't do that is Doris, like you said, they're comfortable in that discomfort, and I tell people that so many times they're like, oh, I don't know why I can't change or I keep going back. You can go back and forth, but as long as you're aware, once you know, you can't unknow. You know when you're not happy with what you're doing. You know when something's not right and you're doing it anyway. And then you go back. It's because it's that certainty, that experience, that lived integration. Danny, you were kind of saying that like you've had that experience, but if you haven't, then it's harder to really lean and trust in what you know is best for you. So,
Yeah. Kind of coming full circle. I just had a thought that I've never thought about before, like kind of going back to that authority, um, that external authority. Like there's such a fine line there when at least for me, when I'm learning and I'm intentionally putting myself in a space where I can feel this intensely in my body and I can feel it against the resistance. Like that's different than just, oh, I think it's time, you know. But this is like I'm pushing against all the things, all the mental things, the blocks that I've, created in my life. I'm
Mhm.
pushing against them and I'm getting support by someone who knows what that looks like and can encourage me and mentor me through that process. There's such a fine line there of someone who can mentor you and then someone who exerts their authority over you, and it
Mhm.
becomes this kind of control. It's so interesting. And that is also so important for me to be able to tap into my personal authority. Is this even a good relationship? And uh, always listening to the body.
Yeah, I love the fact that you have found some some people in your life that you can trust and they support you and they can see you. Like you were saying, like they say, okay, you're there, just keep going, push through, even though it feels uncomfortable, but they see you, you know, they see your potential, they see your value and your worth, even if at times you're like, I don't know, this and that, but they do. And you have
Mhm.
that trust in them enough to kind of allow them to help pull you along. It's not leading you, it's not, they're not taking you where they want you to go. They're
Mhm.
allowing you to take that step and then that next step and then that next step. So I think that is something that not a lot of people have in
Mhm.
their lives, but I think that's really
Yeah,
great.
I mean, the amount of times that I've had to recognize that those types of feelings in myself on my own way outnumber the times where I was mentored in that moment, right? And
Mhm.
people can't support me my entire life. I mean, you know what I mean. I can't have someone in my back pocket all the time
Right.
on
Yeah.
speed dial. Like people have a life. And so there is those moments where you're mentored through something, but then you also have to be able to, at least for me, I needed to be able to repeat that over and over and over again and recognize what that feels like. Um, but it took, for me, I think we've talked about this before, where there is like, it's someone holding space for the experience to happen rather than, like you were saying, forcing the experience on me and making it happen. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, I think mentorship in that respect and the way you're explaining it is so powerful.
Hmm.
I know for myself that sometimes I'll kind of feel stuck up against that resistance. And it's not until there is someone that I trust or sees something in me, recognizes something in me and says, you know what, just take the first step. Like they're there with me to take the first step. And then I'm like, oh, okay, like I got it.
Hmm.
And, like, you can't always rely on it. You have to really build that muscle and feel like, oh, this is the same feeling. I know I
Hmm.
can do this on my own. But man, I wish the world had more mentorship.
Hmm. And I think it's also
Powerful.
like for me, it is. I hope we're not getting off topic too much, but just based on what you said, or whatever, piggybacking on what you said, um, there is like all the more reason to get to that space where you can trust yourself to be able to hold that space for another person.
Mhm. Yeah. We kind of touched on a little bit here and there about that lived integration and having that experience and learning it, but needing kind of to see it practical in our lives so that we can connect to it. And I was thinking there's probably two experiences that really stand out. One has to do with money, and the other one has to do with health. So my money story was also a very I've had it before. So this was the tingling up and down that just shot up and down my spine. So I was talking to someone and they were like, oh, okay. They were telling me the cost of something. And I've had this feeling up and down my spine. I've had it before and I never really thought about what it was. It's always, in hindsight. But this particular time, they told me the amount. And my thought was, oh, dear Lord, oh, God, that's a lot. And I felt it in my back. And immediately my my mind went, mm-mm, just go ahead and do it because they're going to think you can't afford it. They're going to think less of you. They're going to, think you're not right for this. Basically, they're going to think less of you. This was all in my head because my brain was like, you can do it. It's fine. You're working, you're this. And you don't, it's about reputation, right? So it's like, just go ahead and do it. My body is saying, please don't do this. It was actually, when it does that, it screams. And it does that when there's
Mm.
a large amount of money that I'm kind of dealing with or have to, you know, consider. It doesn't do it with the small things, just the big ones. And now I listened to my brain. I went ahead and did it. Was it the right thing? No. Did I waste money? Yes. Did I learn something? Absolutely. Um, and so it's kind of weird because now that I know exactly what that splenic hit is, that particular one, I'm kind of waiting for something to come up again so I can go, see, I'm there. I'm not going to do it. Just so I can say, see, I learned. Um, it hasn't yet because I think because I know what I'm, willing to allow and accept. So that was the money story about my splenic hit, my inner authority going, no, no, no. So that was my choice point. I could do it or I could not. And I went ahead and did it, did not listen. Had I followed my authority, I would be at least, I'm not going to give the amount, but at least $10,000 richer. So large amount of money.
It was an
Um,
invest it was an investment in your learning experience.
I could say that. That would, I could say it was an investment, and not all investments pan out. So it was an investment that did not pan out because I did not listen to myself, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I think you bring up a really, really good point, which is that like reflection is so important. Daily reflection, I would say regular reflection is really, really important in order to create that awareness. A lot of things in regards to um, that learned experience are going to happen in hindsight. Like,
Mhm.
oh, that's what was going on for me. And if you can get to the point where you're experiencing it in real time, like you're getting dialed in, and that's super awesome. I
Mhm.
think also the bottom line in all of this is for me that I'm kind of picking up from it is authority isn't something that happens to you, it's something that flows through you, and
Mhm.
it's a learning that self-trust. There is going to be some discomfort in it. Um, but it's also very expansive. I don't know, just super, super interesting. It's very much a felt experience, which
Mhm.
requires presence and embodiment.
Absolutely. Okay. So that's all I have. Any final thoughts, ladies?
Do the freaking work.
Do the work. And it's such a
Yeah.
beautiful foundation, the inner authority.
Yeah.
It can just anchor you in to so much.
Mhm.
Yeah. It's a really good way of putting that.
All right. Well, that's it. So next time, we're going to be talking about autonomy and, what becomes possible when you trust your body's intelligence, when that trust is established and you then allow yourself the freedom to move through your life, but on your own terms.
I can't.
So, yes. All right. So that's it. Bye.
See ya.
You've been listening to Hiccups and Hot Flashes. We're here for real talk around life's transitions, the messy, the meaningful, and everything in between. If something resonated, be sure to follow the show, leave us a review, and share this episode with someone who's riding their own wave of change. Got a question, comment, or topic you'd love us to explore? Send us an email anytime at hello.hhpodcast@gmail.com. Until next time, trust the hiccups, own the hot flashes, and keep showing up for the magic in the middle.